Evening, folks. This is the Finance and Revenue Committee meeting, December 14th, 2022, with myself, Nick Allen, and Bernie Flynn. We're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order right at 6:30. Item number 2 is comments, suggestions, petitions by residents in attendance regarding items not on the agenda. All right, seeing none, we'll move on to item 3A, which is our November 2022 financials.
Good evening. Jeff, if you could go to page 2, please. So looking at the November 2022 cash balances report, we started the month with $15,944,689 in cash. We brought in $8,303,895. We spent or transfer between funds $8,934,072. This left us with a balance of $15,314,512. And of that amount, $9,949,129 is for restricted purposes. Moving over to page 3. I tried to present this information, the due tos, kind of in a smaller format, showing only the major balances at this point in time. This is still a work in progress. I do need a little bit more time to kind of go through some of these balances. If the committee remembers, we had spoken previously that a majority of these balances go back to the 2016 and 2017 timeframe. That was under a different administrator as well as a different finance director at that time. I have gone through the sewer due to from the general fund, and I was able to identify about $1 million in transactions that were booked to the general fund, deposits that were deposited into the general fund but were recorded as sewer receivables. However, the cash was in the general fund, so I was able to move that over. You will see that that balance has gone from 3.5 million down to 2.4 million. So we have made some progress on reviewing those old balances. We do continue every month to make sure that we are transferring the interfund activity and that these balances will not increase and will remain, relatively the same as they were at 12/31/2021.
Well, I'm talking about the sewer transfer over that two administrations ago. Okay. What exactly did the borough manager transfer? I thought it was like $3 million.
So I just want to clarify that sometimes the word transfer and due tos can be very confusing. Due tos, just so you know, are generally balance sheet items. So that typically can happen when, say we receive a sewer payment for $500 from Mrs. Jones. And that money came in, at our window and we deposited into our general fund. Typically, when that transaction is recorded, you're going to debit your cash and you're going to debit your due to your sewer fund. And those reconciliations should be done each month. A lot of that activity was not done back in 2016 and 2017. So we had some not so correct accounting being done for certain, monies being deposited into some of those accounts. We also have a budgeted transfer line item in our budget that is above and beyond any of this interfund activity. And to the best of my knowledge, I believe back in the 2016 and 2017 timeframe, that budgeted transfer was around $1.5 million from the sewer fund to the general fund.
Yeah, because if you remember all the noise, the background noise from many residents a couple of years ago were claiming that the capital
Operating
should pay back $3 million to the sewer fund because the borough manager at that time transferred that amount of money out. And that's been sitting on our books for as a deadbeat line item. Am I correct that Dale says we should either pay it back or write it off?
So this is what the majority of this $8 million is. That's a decision that Borough Council will need to make. But the point I'm trying to make is I'm not done with our reconciliations. I want to make sure that we can clearly identify any deposits or any other items. I want to make sure that we're able to kind of get them in the right spots before that decision is brought before the committee and then on to
So
council.
you're doing all the forensic stuff yourself?
Yes, and my team as well.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Moving over to page 4, I wanted to provide an accounting of the ARPA funding year to date. This is just yet an accounting of the transactions that have come in and what has been spent. We have received our full funding in ARPA. We received a little over $2 million. Borough Council approved allocations of about 1.76 million. Of these amounts, the projects that are in progress and what we've got bills for, we've paid out about $538,000. So at this point in time, we have about $1.5 million in that cash account. I just want to bring to your attention, I do have 2 stars. By the end of this month, we will be transferring back from the liquid fuels fund into the ARPA money, the $245,000 for the street sweeper. So with that all said and done, the allocations that are left to be allocated by Borough Council by the end of 2024 in ARPA funding totals about $579,000. Moving over to page 5, the budget to actual summary by department for the year ended November 30th. We had actual revenues of $35,528,136. This is offset by actual expense of $30,905,389. This leaves us with a positive position across all funds of $4,622,747, and of that amount, $3,834,231 is attributable to the general fund. Looking at the funds as a whole for the year ended November 30th, starting with the general fund. The general fund is operating in a positive net position of $3.8 million. We have 3 major line items that have exceeded their revenue for the year. That's the EIT, the lien taxes, and our health insurance refund. The total overage at this point in time is a little over $891,000. This will help offset some of the budget overages in expenses as well as revenue line items that may not be collected. We do expect this fund to end in a positive position at year end. Looking at the fire fund, there's 2 large line items that still remain over budget: utilities and equipment repairs. That's been an ongoing issue, again, throughout the year, but there have been some major equipment repairs in the fire department. They're for emergency safety purposes, and, they needed to be paid. So just want to put that on record as well. Looking at the sewer fund. The sewer fund is operating at a net loss of $222,000 year to date. While the sewer rentals have, slowly been able to, creep up to budget throughout the year, we're still seeing some shortages in the monthly sewer rentals, and we're not expecting this line item to meet budget at year end. We think it may be short by about $350,000. I would like to note that we have been caught up with our back billing from Aqua for East Bradford. So we did have a pretty big deposit that we made this week of about $350,000. And we do expect to get our monthly transfers for sewer payments of about another $350,000. So if we take that $700,000 and add it to what we already have, we do expect that line item to come up a little short for year end. Again, as I've been saying every month, I don't think the tap-in fees will meet revenues for the year. So at this point in time, I'm projecting a $635,000 revenue shortage in the wastewater fund. Looking at the expenses are keeping within budgeted line items. We do have a couple line items that are running over budget at this time, but everything else is meeting its expectations at this point in time. So again, the projection at this point in time is the fund may be in a negative net position at year end. Moving over to parking, the parking fund is sitting at a $523,000 net income year to date. One good thing I'd like to point out is the parking garage revenue is beating budget. This has been a hard number for the past 2 years, so I think that's really great that that number's beating budget. We also expect to meet budget with the ticket line items as well as meters. At this point in time, district court fines are also over budget. So revenues are doing very well in parking, and expenses are also within budget. So parking is doing well and is expected to end the year in a positive position. Looking at the liquid fuels fund, I'm not expecting any major expenses through year end. Last Friday, I did make the transfer of $404,521 from the general fund to the liquid fuels fund to satisfy the 2019-2020 audit finding. And as I had said earlier, I do expect to make the other transfer from the liquid fuels fund back to the general fund by year end for to reimburse the general fund for electricity for the traffic lights, as well as the public works street sweeper, and then put the $245,000 back into the ARPA account. And last but not least, the stream protection fund is operating at a net income of $471,000. Revenues are in line with budget. We do see some of the capital expenses are below budget at this point in time. I know that projects are underway. We're hoping that those will be completed by year end. But we also did move 2 of the larger projects into the 2023 budget. So I do expect a little bit of those expenses to be under budget for the year. Are there any questions?
You go first.
Sure. Just to go back to the due tos, you mentioned bringing this before council for a decision. I just want to make sure we're clear about like the final goal of this. So is the idea to, as I know we had talked about this before, just make sure we're not continuing to contribute to the issue. And then once we're understanding that we're kind of like net neutral with that, that we can make a decision to wipe that. Is that the correct terminology there?
Yes, so it's our belief that, you know, Borough Council should make that decision as to whether they want to write off these amounts, whether they think that, you know, the general fund does owe that money to these particular funds. So that would be a decision that we would bring to you.
And is that something we would discuss like in first quarter, like January?
Yeah, definitely first quarter, probably in the February meetings.
And then we got the scary number for wastewater, and then we talked positively about parking. Is there any estimate for that parking revenue surplus?
I don't have a good number at this point in time. Again, I'm not expecting any major expenses. I'm happy to report that I do believe the revenue line items will meet budget. So I expect it to be relatively close to what it is at this point in time. I would say between a $350,000 and $500,000 at this, you know, very early point in the year, or not early, but.
Great, thanks.
Sorry. I still have time.
All right, the one question that haunts me every year, and I'm surprised you didn't bring it up, the cash position on December 31st, rolling into January 1Q for 2023. Last year, we approved borrowing, what, $3 million, was it? Oh, $1 million. $1 million out of the capital reserve fund. But that was based on our cash position at the end of the year last year. 2 questions, and the numbers don't have to be totally exact, but how's our cash position going to be anticipated in 2 weeks' time. And then if we know that we're going to have to borrow the money, we should probably do it sooner than later because the first quarter of 2023, we need to have the money readily available. And if we're going to borrow from ourselves again at 1%, or 5% or 12%, I like the guy at the Fed. He keeps raising things, basis points, 50%. So whatever. So where do we stand, Barb? Because it's Nick and I, we lose sleep over that because knowing going into the next quarter.
So at this time, I have a projected cash balance for the general fund only of about $1.6 million. This is a little bit less than what we ended last year with. If you look at our audited financials, we ended the year with about 2.2 million in cash. So we are expecting that to be a little bit lower than what it was last year. And the ask again, it would be my recommendation that we transfer the $1 million from the capital operating reserve fund to the general fund to be paid back at, a stipulated interest rate by June 1st, 2023, after, our taxes have come in and, things are flowing a little bit better.
We anticipated that, it's better than paying the $50,000 we had to pay a bank, a few years ago, an interest only, to
Right.
borrow their money. So I think Mr. Allen will agree with me, Mr. Metrick. I think we should get that ball rolling sooner than later, because if we could get it done, it's not going to be a secret. We know what's coming. If we can get that, council's not changing next year. So if they can hear it on Wednesday, maybe vote on Tuesday, vote on Wednesday. It's not a secret. It's what we got to do, and we have to have the cash anyway. So, and Mr. Allen will be the judge whether you're credit worthy or not.
I think we're okay. So, yeah. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it. We're good to move on to our action items. 4A is to approve resolutions for pending grant applications. Thanks, Will.
Good evening, Will Williams, Sustainability Director. So we're working on 3 grant applications. They're due later next week. Pretty much every grant application requires a resolution from council that basically says you guys know what's going on and what we're committing to. And because it's grant, we figured we'd address it at Finance Committee. So each one is the same except for the project details. The projects are basically electrical infrastructure overhaul down at Goose Creek wastewater treatment plant. There's a Goose Creek stormwater project that will be along Goose Creek on our public works lot. And then the third one is a Taylor Run Stream Bank Restoration Project, which is on the property that's being redeveloped at West Washington and Hannum Avenue. And it's a flood mitigation and stormwater quality improvement project on our non-Goose Creek watershed, which we still have DEP mandated stormwater quality improvement goals. So this is what one of them looks like. I don't think we need to look at all of them tonight.
All three issues, the electrical substation, stormwater, and restoration, they all each 800,000?
No.
Combination of all?
So the Goose Creek wastewater treatment plant project is 1.2 million. The match requirement is 50% of the grant award, or in other words, 33% of the project. So 1.2 million project, $800,000 grant ask, 400,000 matching requirement. The Taylor Run project has the same match requirement, 66 versus 33% and change. That's a $905,000 project. And the Goose Creek project is much smaller scale. That's a $139,000 project and only 15% match required. It's a different requirement because it's a smaller project. All the match is in next year's budget or in a 5-year capital plan. We're budgeting full project costs, so any grant money we get is gravy.
Any questions? Concern? Great. Thank you. We'll call this 2-0. Item 4B is to approve a motion to authorize the borough manager to execute electric purchasing agreement.
Cool. So our electricity supply contract expires at the beginning of next year. We locked that in 2019 at really historic low. We've had about 15 years of historically low energy prices in this country, which has changed recently. And there's a lot of volatility in energy right now. And that is actually affecting our process, the way we execute these contracts as well. So typically what we would do is we would bring a 2 or 3 year contract to probably this committee for consideration, and then you would advance it to council. We would have to publish it last Friday, so we'd have it in hand from the supplier, and then a couple days to get that signature. Now the market, I just wanted to share this. This is the last year of gas prices. Electricity tracks gas because gas is the main fuel used to produce electricity. So everyone has their favorite boogeyman for energy prices, but it's all about Russia. Russia shut off the tap to the rest of Europe for natural gas. That created, for the first time, a real export market for American natural gas. So that gas has been getting shipped to the coast, compressed, liquefied, put on ships, and shipped over to Europe. And you can see in June, one of those export facilities had an explosion, which shut down the entire facility. It's still not running at capacity, but you could see how the supply surplus that we had from one of these export facilities going offline absolutely crashed the market for a little while in the summer. So this is what's going on. I thought it would be helpful context. But so the change in process is because we're seeing 5, 10, 15% daily swings in prices, those are showing up on the contracts. And that 3 weeks they would give us to sign a contract, which was always a courtesy to municipalities. I used to do this in the private sector, and you had 24 hours to sign a contract. That's now the case for us too. That means we can't get a contract last week, publish it, review it in committee, and then review it as council and then have it signed. So the action item that we're asking for is for council to authorize the borough manager to sign a contract same day. Short term, instead of 2 or 3 years, we're going to look 6 to 18 months. So we're not locking in at this point of high volatility and high pricing. And the price not to exceed would be PECO's default tariff. Jeff, you want to go to the next slide there? Which just went up to 9.6 cents per kilowatt hour. So basically, if we can get a 6 to 18 month contract for less than that, locking in savings, then the borough manager is authorized to sign that contract. It's really the only way to proceed from here. We can't do it the old school way. I'm not sure if that will settle down and go back to normal when the world calms down a little bit, but here we are.
So basically, it's a force majeure method. Every time they decide they need to raise the prices, everything's off the table.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a good way to do business.
I'm sure if we got a contract, sat on it for 3 weeks, and the price went down,
Yeah,
they would let us sign it.
yeah.
But yeah, they want them returned same day.
Yeah, wow, okay.
Yeah, thanks for all the context about that. I think that's really helpful. Any other questions? Makes enough sense to me. Cool. Thank you. I appreciate the presentation a lot. It's really helpful. We'll call that 2-0. Okay, thank you. Item 3C is to approve a motion to authorize the borough manager to execute a contract with Payserve Payroll Solutions for non-uniform and uniform pension plans. Hey, how are you?
You guys have these handouts? Okay, I have them for you. Okay. So good evening, Mike Courtney from RBC Wealth Management. We are the new pension advisor. What we're looking for tonight here with Payserve is we were able to pass upon a savings to the borough to house the assets. They call that a custodian in my business, custodian of the assets. So we can do that at no charge, which eventually saves the borough significant amount of money because you were paying the custodian of the assets on the pension fund about $30,000 a year. Unfortunately, we don't have payroll services at RBC, so we have to bring another outside vendor in to do that, to pay the pensioners on a monthly basis and for their tax reporting forms and stuff like that. So like I mentioned, you were paying about $30,000 a year. We'll probably pay PayServe somewhere in the neighborhood of $6,000 to $7,000 a year. So the whole transaction saves the borough about $23,000. PayServe is, a firm out in New York. We worked with them on 3 other accounts. So have a lot of experience, very, very good firm and very responsive.
My button got messed up. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions about that? Yeah, I don't either. It seems
Yeah.
straightforward enough.
Yeah.
Really
That
does.
was an easy one. That was
Yeah.
an easy one.
Yeah. Any comments, questions, concerns? Alrighty, so we can call 4C a 2-0 recommendation as well. And then item 4D is to approve a motion to adopt a revised investment policy statement for non-uniform and uniform pension plans.
Okay. That's me again. So what we've done is we've created a new investment policy statement. The last time the borough signed the investment policy statement for the pension was 2010, so 12 years ago. We like to update that or at least acknowledge that it's reviewed every 2 to 3 years. Okay. So just flipping through the investment policy statement gives a little introduction. And then it talks about the responsibilities, of the committee, responsibilities of the investment consultant, that would be me, and the responsibilities of the underlying investment managers. Okay. Then we talk about asset allocation, which is probably the big thing in an investment policy statement. You can see the minimum, the target, and the maximum on page 3 there. Just to summarize for you, previous advisor, you were about 57% equity and about 43% bonds. It's updated under this policy to have a target of about 65-35. Even though the Fed has raised interest rates significantly, a 4% yield on your bond portfolio doesn't get to your actuarial return of 7. So, you have to be a little more aggressive with equities. This memorializes that. Okay. And then we just talk about the rebalancing procedures in that, and then just monitoring and performance standards. And then lastly would be where council adopts it, and then we acknowledge it as the investment advisor.
What's up? Any questions?
No.
Any other comments or concerns? Again, thank you. This is
Yes. Yeah.
like really well laid out.
Moving in the right direction, getting
Yeah,
the
and
cost
I
down.
appreciate the update a lot. Every 2 or 3 years? you would
Every
say?
2 or 3 years, we'll be back here.
Okay.
We
wonderful.
promise to bring pizza next time.
All
How
right.
about that?
Can't wait. Awesome. Thanks so much. Yeah, we'll call that 2-0 as well.
Mr. Metric, the MMO for the police, uniform and non-uniform, we changed our agreement to what, 6.7% match interest rate. Remember we lowered the interest rate from 7 down to 6.6, I think it was, through the actuary. Is this somehow going to be tied into that with the new pension people? Or is that still mandated by the Commonwealth that we have to guarantee the pensioners that amount of money?
Colleagues can add more color to my response to your question. You directed it to me. The 6.75%, and I think that's the right number, is your long-term target rate of return for assets in the fund. So some years you're going to make 12%, 13%. Some years you're going to be down, like we're going to be this year.
Unfortunately, the investment returns this year will be negative. But when you lower your actuarial assumption, it does increase the cost for the borough. Okay. So the MMO is a combination of your state aid and then what you have to put in as the borough there. Yes. So lowering it will increase what the borough has to put in. If I think I answered your question. Yeah, like a seesaw there. Yep.
Yeah, so each year we could actually use the EIT 25 basis points to make the MMO whole, as well as meet the responsibility of the pensioners to that 6.7% by using the EIT 25 basis points.
Using that revenue to pay the annual municipal minimum obligation, the 6.75% is a metric just to determine what needs to be put in on every 2-year cycle to reach a balanced and fully funded status over a long period of time. So it's just measuring your fund's performance in 2-year intervals and then creating a amortization process, kind of like paying off a loan, paying off your future obligations for an MMO. If you continue to perform and hit your expected rate of return and all your other assumptions remain constant, you can expect your MMO to slowly decrease over time, and the body of the fund will at some point, together with the contributions from payroll, pay your present and future obligations. That's the balance point all of these payments are targeting. And I take it as a sign no one's objecting that I'm
Spoken like an actuary, Sean. Spoken like an actuary. So,
Yeah, we always, on the finance team, we always worry about making sure that we have cash coming in somewhere, because many, many years ago, we had a distressed pension program, which really upset Mr. Allen. Now we're up around 81% or 82%, I think, and we want to make sure it keeps going into the positive realm. The only thing I'm worried about is, I mean, this year with everything, inflation was at 9, now it's down to 7.1, which is no great task either.
no.
But I'm just worried about having cash to make sure that we can meet those obligations. That's the main thing, so.
Yeah. And as we achieve, getting closer to 100% funded, that obviously affects the MMO and hopefully long term, we're over 100% funded. All right.
The other way to really control your long-term assumptions is what's the population of that's being served by the pension fund. So
Is that changing now because of the new hires?
No, we are, those assumptions are baked in, but if you were to add more employees,
Oh, which is not a good idea.
that would change your assumption
Yeah,
a lot.
thank you.
You're projecting a lot of stress and sleepless nights onto me. I'm sleeping fine. Great. I think I put my agenda away. Here it is. Okay. That's what I thought. Yeah. 4E is to approve our November minutes, which are fine by me. Any other business tonight? All right. Seeing none, we will go ahead and adjourn at 7:03. Thank you.